I still remember the first time I read about Stacy Payne. She was only 15, bright, outgoing, and full of plans for the future. The kind of person whose energy filled a room. But on one quiet summer afternoon in 2001, her story took a turn so devastating that an entire community would never be the same again. Welcome to Death Row Diaries. If you're new here, consider subscribing. Every week we uncover the truths most people are too afraid to confront. It was July 11th, 2001, a hot, ordinary Wednesday in Spencer County, Indiana. I can picture the scene, a small neighborhood, kids riding bikes, sprinklers hissing in the background. Stacy was home getting ready for her part-time shift at a local pizza shop. She'd finished her homework early and was waiting for her ride. Her younger sister was upstairs taking a nap. Then there was a knock at the door. A man stood outside, claiming he was looking for a missing dog. It seemed innocent enough. Small-town politeness meant people still opened their doors. But that knock would change everything. Moments later, Stacy's life was stolen in one of the most heartbreaking crimes Indiana had ever seen. Her little sister awoke to terrifying sounds coming from downstairs. She hid, frozen in fear, and when she finally found the courage to call for help, a local marshal arrived almost instantly. He caught the intruder inside the house, but by then, the damage had been done. News of what happened spread faster than anyone could process. Spencer County wasn't used to violent crime, especially not something this senseless. Teachers, classmates, and neighbors flooded the Payne family's yard with flowers and candles. People couldn't understand how a man with such a dark past had been free to roam the streets at all. That's when details about the attacker began to surface, and what the public learned only made the heartbreak deeper. Ward's arrest was immediate. He was literally caught at the scene. But even with a confession and undeniable evidence, the legal process that followed would stretch for decades. It's something that still shocks people who look back on this case today. Ward was charged with murder and assault within days of the crime. The community rallied around the Payne family. They attended every hearing, every motion, every update, holding on to the hope that justice would finally be served. When the trial began the following year, prosecutors presented the evidence, and the jury didn't take long to reach a decision. Ward was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to death. For a moment, it felt like the nightmare had ended. But justice, it turned out, would not come so easily. In 2004, the Indiana Supreme Court overturned both the conviction and the sentence. The reason? The court believed that the trial should have been moved out of Spencer County because of intense community outrage. To the Payne family, it felt like losing Stacy all over again. Every memory, every testimony, every photo shown in court, they would have to relive it all. I can only imagine what it must have been like to sit there, hearing lawyers argue about procedure while their daughter's absence still echoed through every room of their home. The retrial wouldn't even begin for several more years. Ward offered to plead guilty if prosecutors would take the death penalty off the table, but the deal never happened. The state pressed forward. By 2007, nearly 6 years after the crime, a new jury was selected in Clay County. Once again, the evidence was overwhelming, and once again, the jurors chose death. When the judge read the sentence, some in the courtroom wept. Others sat in stunned silence. For the Payne family, it was a bittersweet moment, relief mixed with exhaustion. Justice had been reaffirmed, but the process had taken so much from them. Even then, the case didn't end. Ward appealed again and again. The Indiana Supreme Court rejected his motions in 2009 and again in 2012. At one point, his execution was even scheduled for December 2012, but it was delayed at the last minute for further review. Each postponement meant another letter, another news headline, another reopening of old wounds for Stacy's parents and sister. Years turned into decades. By 2020, only a handful of inmates remained on Indiana's death row, and Roy Lee Ward was one of them. In 2025, Indiana began to resume executions after a 15-year pause. When the Attorney General moved to schedule Ward's execution, the Payne family once again found themselves thrust back into the public eye. Ward's attorneys argued that the drugs used in lethal injection could cause suffering, claiming it would violate his rights. The courts listened, but ultimately rejected the appeals. A new date was set, October 10, 2025. Even then, Ward filed one final petition for clemency. The state parole board held a hearing where both sides spoke. Ward's lawyers said he had been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder and deserved mercy. But the family of Stacy Payne spoke too, and their words carried a different kind of weight. Stacy's mother described birthdays that no longer felt like celebrations and holidays that never felt complete. Her voice cracked as she told the board, "Our family gatherings are no longer whole." Those words stayed with everyone who heard them. The board voted unanimously to deny clemency. A few days later, the governor agreed. After 24 years, the long legal battle was finally coming to an end. On the evening of October 10, 2025, at the Indiana State Prison, Roy Lee Ward's sentence was carried out. He had spent nearly half his life on death row. His final words were brief, his final meal extravagant, but none of that mattered to the family sitting in the witness room. For them, this was not about vengeance. It was about peace, a peace they had waited almost a quarter century to find.